salt. You can forget to water me. I don't care what my soil's like. Put me anywhere. What am I? I'm Thyme! When you really delve into the world of thyme, it can be overwhelming. There's over 300 species of thyme, and they're in the mint family, which is enormous. It's also convoluted. You've got your typical garden thyme, that's Thymus vulgaris. But there's tons of different types of Thymus vulgaris. And then you've got all these common names that get interchanged. People call everything wild thyme, mother of thyme, creeping thyme, any thyme. And then you get terms like creeping, mounded, upright, matted, ground cover. And you get these crazy names on the labels in garden centers like lime thyme, orange thyme, lemon thyme, summertime. Here's my Latin breakdown. Anything with coccinea in the Latin name is going to be a creeping thyme. Okay, really popular varieties of those are the serpulum and the praecox. You'll see that a lot on labels. Woolly thyme is another common name thrown around. That's a type of creeping thyme as well. Pseudolanuginosus is the Latin for woolly thyme. That's a mouthful. Citriodorus and pelagioides are Latin names for the common term lemon thyme. Okay, so that's more of a scented, lemony citrus variety. It's a wormhole. So which one do you get? I don't know. I say pick the one that calls out to you. Get this. So I go to the garden center the other day and I walk up to the herbs and I didn't check the label. I like to do that. I purposely don't look at the label right away because I want to see if I know what's what. So I pick up this guy. I'm like, oh, it's classic thyme. Smells like classic thyme. Thymus vulgaris for sure. Gonna get some of that just because I need that smell right now. And then I look at this one and I notice the leaves are a different color. The habit looks quite trailing. I smell it. Very lemony. This must be Citriodorus. Maybe it's a creeping thyme. I look at the tag and it says summertime. That's a Thymus vulgaris. Okay, you'll get different Thymus vulgaris varieties, summer, winter, French. And so I'm completely confused. I'm standing there. I don't understand how this can be a Thymus vulgaris. I don't know. Do they know? It wasn't a true garden center that I went to, so I don't know, you guys. I doubt it. I kind of doubt it. This one seems like a creeping lemon type thyme. Like I said, convoluted. All thymes are really similar in their growing needs, so don't worry too much about varieties and different care. Thymes need at least 5 hours of full sun per day, okay? Don't plant them in the shade. They will not be happy. As far as soil goes, thyme needs well-draining soil, but other than that, it tolerates really poor soils. So if you have an area in your yard that you know is kind of just depleted or might need amendment, you can get away with planting thymes there. Contrary to my common recommendations, I actually recommend not seeding thyme and propagating it with the stems instead. We'll get to that in a bit. Thyme foliage can be silvery, it can be variegated, dark green like the classic Thymus vulgaris, and the leaves grow opposite up the stem. Flowers are usually purple, sometimes pink. They're sort of tubular shaped and they come out in clusters at the top of each stem. Typically the recommendation is to pinch those flowers off to keep the herb kind of bushy, and if you're cooking with it, to keep the flavor in the foliage. But I don't know, you guys. The flowers are a bee favorite. And also, they taste good too, okay? You can eat them. If you do want to pinch them off, eat them. Lots of people have trouble with their thyme plants getting too woody. The stems get too thick and obvious on the plant. People don't like the way it looks. You gotta prune. So these are just little guys, but on bigger thyme plant, what happens is it starts to grow, and all of a sudden, all those lower branches and leaves aren't really getting sunlight because they're shaded from the upper foliage and the rest of the plant. As your thyme plant grows, look out for this, and if it starts to look too dense, prune those higher branches off and make sure that the whole plant is getting enough sunlight. Biggest pruning tip here is you never want to prune the whole plant, okay? Kind of shocks it, stresses it out. You always want to prune about 1/3 of the plant at a time. You also don't want to do it at the end of the gardening season. Anywhere near there'd be a risk of frost, don't prune it. It leaves it too exposed. It's too at risk. Okay, I have to include this bit. Have you ever looked at your grass and been like, God, I hate grass. It's so yellow. Ooh, it's the worst. Can you tell I don't really like grass? Grass has its role. I know grass plays an important role, but just so you know, there's a thing called Xeriscaping. It's basically when you convert your lawn into a whole spread of one type of plant, and you can do it with thyme. Creeping thyme would be best. Just think, you'd never have to look at your yellowing grass again, and you barely have to water it. It's super drought tolerant. Okay, no, seriously. It'd be a bit of work. It would take a while to establish. But I just want you to know that this is a thing you could do. Thyme stems do this thing called layering, where as soon as a stem is kind of set to the ground and makes contact with it, it tries to set out new roots. So that's why creeping thyme is called that, but that's why it makes a great xeriscaping option, or a spreading option. If you want to manipulate the way that it grows, you can get some little like U-clips or metal clips, and you just kind of almost gently force it down onto the soil to encourage it to spread that way. You could make your own little world of thyme. Okay, propagating. Like I said earlier, I actually don't recommend seeding thyme. It can be hard because of uneven germination and damping off, which is when the seeds are so tiny they just rot because they're so sensitive to moisture. So then because they're so sensitive to moisture, you want to be careful when you're germinating them so you don't keep them as moist as you would regular seedlings, and then the whole germination process takes a lot longer because of this, and it's just so much easier to do it via cutting. Propagating a thyme stem takes about 3 to 4 weeks to set new roots, depending on your region, but there are some things that I want you to know. 1, do not propagate thyme that you buy from the grocery store. It doesn't work. Whether it's organic or conventional, that stem has been cut for at least a week and it's not fresh anymore. 90% sure it's not going to work for you. 2, contrary to what you might think, the stem of a thyme plant doesn't actually have to be mature and woody to propagate it. It can be young and tender, works just as well. Just use some really fine clippers when you're taking off stems and go all the way to the base. 3, if your stem has flowers, take the flowers off and strip the leaves from about the bottom third of the plant, okay? I'm just gonna snip a little bit here. So here's my stem. There's no flowers, so I'm not gonna take off the flowers. And then I'm actually just gonna run my hand opposite the direction the leaves are growing until you have a nice little woody portion to stick into your soil to root. You can do this with any variety of thyme. 4, you can dip the stem in a rooting hormone, but you don't have to. Just kind of helps speed up the process and apparently helps protect against disease. But you can also use honey. Do you know about this? The idea is honey has antimicrobial and antifungal properties, so if you were to dip it in honey, it sort of naturally aids the normal rooting process without speeding it up. Obviously make sure your honey is pure if you're going to be playing around with that. But plain and simple, you don't have to dip it in anything, okay? You can just take it and root it in the soil without honey or rooting hormone or whatever. 5, create humidity, okay? Plastic bottles work really well for this, or you can buy like little domes. The thing is, it needs to establish roots, right? A cutting has no roots for, like I said, 3 to 4 weeks-ish. So you need to create an environment that's almost doing the work that the roots would usually do for this cutting. Keep those babes moist. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel if you want to watch more videos like this. They come out every Friday. God, cloning can actually be quite simple, hey? It's good, it's more complicated to make humans. Wait, people are probably cloning now. Terrifying thought.